We're back. Season 7, Episode 2, All Bottled Up. This is the episode in which Starlight and Trixie go around, and Starlight bottles up her anger, and it goes badly, and then Trixie pisses me off, and then I slug her in the face, and then the episode gets a lot better. After the face slugging. So, first of all, imagination-based magic. Remember that for later. I'm going to circle back to that. So let's get the memes out of the way. Teacup. There, okay. We're done. We're done with the memes. We're good. Sorry, I was distracted by something in my Discord there. I apologize. Anyways. So, yeah, alright. Good actresses, you know, good acting. Everything's cool. Everything's cool. It's best episode ever. 10 out of 10. Does that say Roscoe? Okay, so let's go through this sequentially, shall we? Let us get this out of the way. The actresses really do an absolutely fantastic job, as they always do. Yay! Trixie, you're so good at magic and having good hair. That actually got a laugh out of me. I'll give you that one. So, initially, Trixie is a dick. This is violation number 1, I think? Hang on. Nope, yep, I'm right. Violation number 1. She's like, oh, don't worry. I'll just give you these crummy pretzels and you could use those as a thing instead of these lovingly handcrafted, you know, homemade tea cakes. Okay. So that's dick violation number 1. Now, I'm willing to forgive that. That's not really a big deal. Ignoring the fact that she was obviously excited and that's why the tea cakes got screwed, she doesn't really think much of the main 6, so she doesn't really care that much about them, so of course she would just be like, yeah, here, have some pretzels, whatever. I imagine if this was something to use a parallel equivalent, like for Starlight, someone she cared about, she wouldn't just be like, here, have some pretzels. She would probably think of something more substantial. So, violation number 1, not too bad. This then leads to Spike. Now, Spike's actually pretty awesome in this episode, even though he's mostly just a background character. Probably my favorite part is, I need to start teleporting someone, and Spike goes like, and you can just see as he's trying to figure out exactly how to deal with that, right? Like how do you process that? How do I say no to this while being polite? You can just see that's running through his head, and Starlight intervenes. It's like, no. And then Spike's like, yeah, I'm going to be over here while you're practicing magic. I like Spike here. Anyways. But yeah, he's just, I got comics to read, so I'm good. You have fun at your friendship retreat. Okay. And Trixie's like, don't worry, she'll just go back in time and fix it. Kidding. This is when I noticed that Trixie is an interesting parallel to Starlight, because Starlight is somewhat inattentive and has a tendency to leap into things before really thinking about them. Which is exactly what Trixie is like, just more exaggerated. Because Trixie is very inattentive and has a massive tendency to leap into things. Also, I'm actually with Act on that, Baron. If you knew someone like Trixie is portrayed in this episode, I would stop interacting with that person immediately. I should know, I have. Now granted, I'm 38, I don't have tolerance for that kind of crap in my life anymore, but if I knew someone like Trixie in this episode, now, I wouldn't know them tomorrow. So, this leads to violation number 2. Casually bringing up Starlight's torrid past. Oh, so when you're super strong, you could totally deal with that, blah, blah, blah. Starlight is definitely still not over that. We've actually been talking about that in basically every single one of her appearances so far since the end of Season 5. But the way she so casually brings it up is it's still a dick move. Let me parallel this for you. I'll use something direct. Let's say for a moment that I say that I suck. at making ruminations. Now let's say you say I suck at making ruminations. Now, that may or may not describe all that it needs to, but the tone and approach and cultural acceptability of those two things are completely different. I am allowed to disparage myself because, frankly, I don't really mean it that much, and it's mostly by virtue of the fact that I'm not actually, I do have self-confidence issues. If you tell me that, that's you being a dick. Especially if that's all you say. Laura, you suck, is just you being a dick. And I'm sorry to say that, because that has happened plenty of times, especially on my streams, but that is the reality of the matter. You are not trying to make things better. You are not trying to improve. You are not trying to critique. You're not trying to, inform. All you're doing is trying to push me down. Right? So, that leads us to Trixie. Violation number 2. Okay. This then leads to some accidental magic. Now, this is funny. I don't plan these things out. I really don't. This is another thing that most settings that have magic in them tend to have built-in checks and balances for accidental magic. There's usually things to detect magic, or to scry magic, or to trace magic. To use Forgotten Realms as an example, again, if someone accidentally teleported something away, there would be many different methods by which you could, detect the spell itself, or detect in the spot where it was, or try to find the literal trail, there are methods by which you can try to track this kind of thing, and once again, we see that those checks and balances do not exist within Equestria. I'm starting to wonder, once again, if this actually is a world-building point, because there is world-building in this episode. We'll talk about that later. And it might literally just be a thing that magic is, and I don't have a nicer way to say this, undeveloped enough as an institution that maybe they haven't really thought to kind of develop these kind of checks and balances yet. Possible. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point. Anyways, this leads to Trixie violation number 3. She is completely nonplussed about the issue of the disappeared map, despite the fact that Starlight is very obviously and openly freaking out about it. This leads immediately to probably the actual worst Trixie violation. It's debatable. There's another one. Trixie violation number 4, blaming Starlight for her own screw-up. Now this touched a nerve for me because I've seen plenty of people use this in real life. Oh, well, you should have just told me first. Oh, well, maybe you should have gone ahead and, inform. It's the thing where they completely try to redirect the violation, the problem, the blame onto the other person. Yeah, it's the blame shifting thing. If you remember, Zephyr actually did this once. I pointed it out when he was saying, what I'm trying to say is you're welcome. You remember that speech? I know. Same type of thing. Like I said, this is probably the worst violation right here. There's another one that's debatable. We'll get to that in just a second. So at this point, I'm already not liking the episode. Then we cut to Spike washing all the teacups, which suddenly gets another laugh out of me. It's also a really good scene, as almost every scene between Starlight and Spike are. It's actually, seriously, almost every scene between these two characters is legit. You ever notice that? And so she is completely honest with Spike. I have an anger cloud, and I'm going to put it into this bottle. You'll notice that this is a little on the nose, and this is, I think, one of the things to the episode's detriment. She's literally bottling her anger. So, anyways. But Spike's like, are you sure that's a good idea? Starlight's like, yeah, I gotta do this. And she is completely open and honest with Spike, who then takes it completely like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go check the castle, see if I can find it. And he's just kind of cool with the whole thing, Like, it's nothing big. It's not like he's solving Mensa problems. But you could see how this is a pretty good take on Spike. So, this is also where I tend to sympathize with Starlight. Again, I keep saying that. I'm starting to wonder if Starlight is actually the me pony and not, Mod or Rarity, because this just keeps happening. See, I have 3 categories of anger amongst myself. I don't know if other people have this. I don't care. First category, temper. Temper's not anger. Temper is something I don't mean and I don't feel and I don't think. Temper is just a sudden and violent outburst, usually as a direct response to some kind of stimuli, right? That's not me. That's nothing to do with anything. So that's over there. But then we have anger and rage. Now, we'll get into anger in a second. Rage is... Most people have never seen me actually be enraged. It's a very, very rare thing. I could probably name on 2 hands all the times I've felt that in the past 20 years. But anger, well... Fury is just another form of rage. Fury is rage-focused. Rage is fury-unfocused. Wrath isn't on the list. So yeah, so then we have anger. Now the problem with anger is anger gets worse when you're already angry. It's seesaw, right? And the more it's tilting, the more it tends to tilt. Which is why I am bringing this up with regards to this. Because you'll notice that after she starts bottling her anger is when it becomes much easier for her to get angry. Yeah, it snowballs, exactly. And what's really funny about that, everybody knows that anger snowballs. Snowballs? Everyone knows anger snowballs. What most people aren't aware of when it comes to human psychology is that most emotions snowball. No, really. Fear will cycle in on itself until it leads to panic and etc. Unless, you know, a spoke is put in there. Love, happiness, you know, laughter, anxiety, pressure, concern. Most emotions will snowball if they are allowed to. It is thus why it is so important to have a degree of emotional stability and control. Now, anger is an obvious one, because anger is something we deal with all the frickin' time. But you get my point. Yes, I just need to stop feeling everything. No, this, of course, leads to... You know, I could go for some cinnamon nuts right about now. Anybody else want some? That sounds pretty good. Maybe Bulk Biceps should hire Trixie to do marketing. Because several people came to buy some nuts after she was just going around eating them around them, right? Well, that's cheap marketing right there. Anyways. So this leads to violation number 5. I was craving something sweet since I couldn't have any tea cakes this morning. This is the other one that might be in contest for the worst violation of Trixie being a dick. That is needlessly, pointlessly rubbing it in her face. That it's not as stark as violation number 4, the blame shifting, but it's far more personal. And it's just, what is wrong with you for saying something like that? Wait, there was a main 6 plot? Okay, real talk, I have written down 2 sentences about the main 6 plot, which is clearly just here for padding. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. We can go and talk about it right now. We'll go ahead and interrupt discussing the episode to talk about the B plot. So, first of all, I actually really wish I had had a chance to do escape rooms back when I used to go to Gen Con every year with my sister and my friends. Because they're cool. They're neat little things, right? It's the kind of thing that you have to be into to enjoy. You know what I mean? I'm saying that wrong. If you don't go along with the gimmick, it's not fun. That's what I mean by that, right? You kind of have to give a little in order to get the enjoyment back out of it. There's a lot of things like that in life, you know. You know, you're up there and you're having fun on like an acting thing, and you just don't act the part, or you don't really play the D&D game the right way, or you're not really enjoying, you know, you're just trying to win and you're not actually just trying to have fun with the MTG table or whatever. This applies in a lot of aspects, usually around games, especially social games. So yeah, you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, and you have to be on board, right? You have to be willing to suspend that disbelief in order to enjoy the experience. So that means, ergo, that, you know, escape rooms, if you're into it, if you're willing to take that extra step, are apparently a whole lot of fun. And I say apparently, you're probably wondering, why didn't you ever go to one, Lore? The lines. Escape rooms were ludicrously popular, and good luck getting in for a session, because, you know, you get like 30 minutes per escape room, and it's like, ooh. You know, there's only so many of those you can fit in a day, right? And Gen Con's only a week long. So, never actually got to. The second thing I wanted to mention, I love how Rainbow and Rarity are both into the escape room concept because it's a challenge. And then they missed the Griffin record because of the song. So let's talk about the song. All right, now that we're done with that. Real talk. I have been keeping track of a list of my favorite songs. In fact, as S.A. Ross can attest, recently in Discord, I had to go back and re-add the songs that I missed. Yeah, the Griffins had a record for teamwork. Maybe Gilda, or not Gilda. Is it Gilda? No, it's Gabby, isn't it? Whatever. Maybe she had a group of friends there. I don't know. But I've been keeping track of my songs in order of favorites from top to bottom, right? Now, I've yet to run into a song I actively dislike, but this song is at the bottom of the list so far. This is my least favorite song on this show so far. And that's probably all I really need to say about that. However, I will give the episode credit because the edits back and forth between the two perspectives are actually reasonably clever. It's just, you know, that's it. That's all it's got going for it. Ah, nuts. Ah, nuts. Yeah, that's it. That's all it's got. Thank you, Slim Jim Reborn. I can't imagine why you'd be thinking about Stardew Valley right now, but I'll put it towards that. Thank you very much, as always. 20 months, geez Louise. I'd say forgettable. I have an extraordinarily good audio memory, and I've already forgotten half the song. So, anyways. So that's the B plot. Doesn't matter, padding, moving on. Let's get back to the A plot. So, we've already had violation number 5, which was the really pointless cruelty one. Starlight, meanwhile, her hair and her face are just getting slowly more and more worn down, and which is really well done, and I love it. And that leads to violation number 6. Now, violation number 6 isn't an individual incident. It's more like just the rest of the episode, because she continues, up until the anger explodes, she continues to be completely blasé about everything. I'll admit, this also pisses me off, because I've seen people who are completely blasé about crap they've done. I've mentioned before that there are some people I've never actually forgiven for things they've done, and probably never will. One of the biggest reasons why those particular grudges sit there in the back of my memory is because those people never saw that there was an issue, and were blasé about the whole thing, and therefore never saw the need to apologize for anything because they have nothing to apologize for. So, yeah, at this point, I'm pretty much at Slug Trixie phase. Now, this leads to the anger breaking out. This is, once again, true of most human emotions. If you bottle up a certain emotion and then it pushes out, well, it usually is a bad thing. And again, it doesn't matter which emotion that is. Fear, love, anger, whatever, right? When unresolved or dangling, we tend to have issues once it actually erupts. This is also why venting is something that is so important, and something that I tend to encourage people to figure out a good way to healthily vent in their lives. Because otherwise this kind of crap happens, and it's usually bad. I would honestly say that a huge amount of the problems with regards to so-called crimes of passion, and Slim Jim Reborn being awesome, thank you, Slim Jim Reborn, is a lack of proper venting. Is a lack of proper emotional management. And then and then it bursts, and then you just gun the car for a second and hit the person in front of you, who's a pedestrian. Now, you don't want to hurt that person. Like, that person, so this is a real example. This happened in a city I used to live in. Guy was really pissed off at a pedestrian. There's a whole story. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but the point is the pedestrian was being a dick. Let's just summarize. And the pedestrian was being a dick, and the person in the car just gunned the car really briefly, like just for a few seconds. It was just enough to actually nail the person. Now, they didn't actually want to hurt that person, and they didn't really want to kill that person, but without the proper emotional control and venting necessary. You see the problem? This is a very, very large-scale problem in human society, I think. Because, yeah. Now, yeah, in the moment, the worst human consciousness right there is being in the moment. So, yeah, no kidding, Dream Whisperer. I don't even want to get into that, but yeah, we have a little more gun control. Anyways, so world building, right? Magic requires focus and imagination. Okay. Now, we don't know if that's just their magic or all magic, but this is the first time they've really mentioned such a thing. This means this is basically the X-Men factor. For those of you not familiar with the underpinnings of how X-Men works, it's basically the same thing. You have to, for all intents and purposes, do a concentration check every time you use your power, every time you use your spell, in order to try and make sure that it happens and happens properly. This also means, the specific power of a spell can vary depending on how much focus and how well you're imagining it. Starlight mentions her power is her magic is powered by her emotion. Now, this is a bit of a distinction because they demonstrate that the imagination and focus thing applies to both Trixie and Starlight, whereas only Starlight mentions that her magic is powered by her emotion. And it's also worth noting, yeah, no kidding, Darth Medora. It's also worth noting that as she is drained of her emotions, all of her magic power leaves her in a demonstrable way, where she literally can't even cast a spell. That they show that on the screen. So it is my take that Starlight in particular empowers her magic with her emotions. This also leads back to the idea that we've talked about many times, that Starlight is the sorceress, whereas Twilight is the wizard, right? And yeah, this would also help to explain why Starlight's relative power level is so high. Because, she's got a modifier, basically. You ever play a Warlock in 5th edition? She's got the Eldritch Blast booster, So, I keep paralleling this to D&D. Now, so that's cool. That's interesting to think about. It does make me wonder, because if I was designing this, now this is pure headcanon and theory crafting at this point. If I was designing this, I would say most mages, that not unicorns, but unicorns where magic is their specialty. So in other words, Twilight, Starlight, Star Swirl, and I can't think of any others off the top of my head, probably have one thing that specifically helps them to utilize or empower their magic. So, it's their specific shtick, right? Starlight is emotion. Trixie does not count. Starlight's is emotion. Twilight's would probably be organization, the pattern, right? Or not the pattern, I shouldn't say that. The lattice of it, the construction of it. The math. There we go. Right? Star Swirl, we'll talk about him later. It's just food for thought. Either way. What about the princesses? I frankly don't think any of the princesses are what I would call mages. They're alicorns. They're powerful, but I wouldn't call them a mage. Like I said, I can only think of 3 mages off the top of my head. I'm sure there's others, but there's only the 3 that I can think of right now. So this leads to the episode's big moment. This is when the episode really loses me. Oh, Sunburst is a scholar, is what I would call him, right? Like he's an academician, if you want to be fanciful about it. Someone who is really well learned in magic, even if he himself is not what I would call a mage. The episode tries to earn the idea that both Starlight and Trixie are in the wrong here, and in my opinion, it fails. Trixie being in the wrong is duh. The only way this episode is salvaged at all for me is if we assume that this is a point of view thing. Like point of view. In other words, what we see on screen is not what actually happened. That this is an exaggerated, variant on reality that is being done from the perspective of Starlight. That's the only way this could be salvaged, and frankly, I don't think the episode is actually doing that, so I can't give it that credit. But Trixie, duh. Starlight's crime is not being honest and open about it with Trixie like she was with Spike. And yeah, you know me, S.A. Ross, at least you probably don't know me at all, but you've probably noticed that one of the biggest things that tends to irritate me in characterization across any show is Flandersization. When you exaggerate it to the point of ridiculous, I'm just like, okay. Speaking of which, I am giving a counter-continuity counter for this episode for the way Trixie behaves, because again, this is just Flandernized all over the place. This is just ridiculous. So, boo, counter-continuity for Trixie, because I would argue she's completely out of character here. Trixie being a bit oblivious? Sure. Trixie being a bit selfish? Sure. But there's a reason I kept pointing out all 6 of her violations throughout the episode, and specifically highlighting them, because that's, to be perfectly blunt, not Trixie, especially to Starlight. Remember, one of the biggest things that Starlight and Trixie bonded over was their shared bad past. Now, I agree with that, S.A. Ross. Like you mentioned earlier, this episode kind of does I forget how you phrased it, but you said something. It's all over the place. I think Trixie was fine at the beginning, and then she just goes into Nana land. Roller coaster, thank you, roller coaster. And that's what really hurts the episode so much for me, is it's like, whoa. And it keeps coming back to good moments, and then it keeps going back to bad ones. Anyways, let me finish my point here. Sorry, I'm really rambling because I'm starting to have issues with my own concentration. Teacup. Starlight tries to take ownership of not telling this to Trixie. Okay, that's good, because she should be honest about it, and that is the Aesop of the episode. Don't bottle up, right? The problem is, she says, and I wrote this down, I don't know how you could have known, because I didn't tell you. Now, I don't want to be unkind, but unless Trixie is a blind, dumb fruit bat wrapped up in cellophane, I can't possibly see how Trixie could have missed throughout the episode how much she was pissing off Starlight. Regardless of the literal magical bottle of rage, which Trixie only noticed right towards the end, right before it shattered, Starlight was very visibly and audibly upset at every turn. Constantly. Now, I know Trixie is a little self-centered and a little self-focused, but for her to be that massively socially inept, and that of course hurts the episode completely, because it completely destroys the central point of both ponies were in the wrong. No, they weren't. Trixie was in the wrong. Starlight even actually managed this whole situation as well as she could, other than the one mistake she made. She also owns up to it properly. Repairs the nut cart. Yeah, it's just... I don't know, I actually agree with that, S.R.S. I was going to give a generic continuity counter for this one, because between between bulk biceps and the spa thing, right? Oh no, my other job! Yeah, I agree, Act. A stage magician really should be able to read the room. What? I wear many hats. And that's my point. It feels, as with so many other episodes, and we've encountered this problem before in MLP, it feels like they wanted really hard to reach a specific moral point, and so they just shortcut it there, right? They Flanderized and they exaggerated to the point where it actually hurts the point of the episode. That's my opinion. So I still don't like this episode. I will admit it is actually better than I remembered, because, as I pointed out, there were good moments in it, and there were dips up in quality, but I still think this is a definitively below average episode, and I don't know how much further down I would go. What do you all think? I would honestly be fine with giving this blue. I'm not going above green. You're not talking to me above green. I'm sorry. I'm willing to bend, but not that far. Yeah, I will never watch this one again. This one's going on the skip list. That's a damn shame, because we don't have that many Trixie episodes. And... I can't think of the actress' name. Whoever plays Trixie is amazing. Oh, it's not a lamentation. It's not that far. Kathleen Barr, thank you. It's not that far down. We've still only really encountered the one lamentation for me. I'm seeing a lot of disagreement actually in chat. Let's go ahead and go with green. We'll compromise. Oh wait, sorry. We'll compromise on green. That's still just a great scene. Sorry. Previous episode.